So, you hear the name all the time, right? The United Nations. It's pretty much the biggest name in global politics. But what is it, really? What does it actually do? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the UN, from how it was born out of a world at war to its incredibly complex role today. Let's get right into it. Here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll look at the UN's origin story, which is pretty dramatic. Then, we'll break down its structure into its two main power centers. After that, we're going to zero in on the one thing that gives the UN its real power and also happens to be its biggest problem. Finally, we'll see where it all stands in our world today. Okay, so where did this whole idea even come from? Well, to really get it, you have to go back to the deadliest conflict in all of human history. The UN was literally forged in the fires of World War II, born from this global promise that humanity could never, ever let something that catastrophic happen again. Now, the UN wasn't the world's first rodeo with a global governing body. After World War I, we had the League of Nations, and it had similar goals, but it had a huge, fatal flaw. It was basically powerless. When countries like Hitler's Germany just ignored it, the League couldn't do a thing. It had no teeth. The founders of the UN were absolutely determined not to make that same mistake twice. So, learning from that epic failure led to a whole new plan. The United Nations wasn't just a simple rebranding of the League. It was a total redesign, built from the ground up with a really clear mission and, crucially, the power to actually back it up. And that mission, while huge, can pretty much be boiled down to two core pillars. Number one, prevent another world war, no matter what. And number two, create a space where nations can actually work together on everything from security to human rights. The whole idea was to get people talking before things got violent. Now, to pull all this off, the UN has a bunch of different parts, but at its heart, there are two main power centers that you've definitely heard of, the absolutely massive General Assembly and the much smaller, much more powerful Security Council. So let's start with the General Assembly. Honestly, the best way to picture it is as a massive, global town hall meeting. It's the main place where every single nation gets to have its say. And when I say massive, I am not kidding. We are talking about 193 voting member states. That is almost every country on the entire planet, which makes the General Assembly the most representative body in the world. So, you might be wondering, who isn't in that 193? Well, there are two special cases with permanent observer status, Vatican City and Palestine. This means they can come, they can join the debates, they can make speeches, but they don't get a vote. Palestine has tried over and over to get full membership, but that big decision isn't up to the General Assembly. It's up to the Security Council. Okay, so does all this talking in the global town hall actually get anything done? Oh yeah, for sure. Take UNICEF. Back in 1946, it was the General Assembly that created this organization. And today, UNICEF is a global powerhouse for children's rights, providing everything from vaccines to emergency aid. All right, now let's switch gears. We've talked about the big, inclusive General Assembly. Now we're going to look at the UN's other center of power, the much smaller and way more focused Security Council. Its entire job is right there in the name, maintaining international peace and security. That's it. And the setup here is totally different. Instead of 193 members, you only have 15. But here's the really critical part. 10 of those members are elected, and they rotate out every 2 years. But 5 of them, well, they're permanent. And that split is the key to understanding how this whole thing really works. These are the famous P5, the permanent 5, and their special status is basically a direct hangover from World War II. Think about it. The United States, China, France, Russia, and the United Kingdom. They weren't just the victors of the war, they were the major powers of 1945, and their buy-in was seen as absolutely essential for the UN to even work. So this permanent seat and the special power that comes with it was the price of getting them on board. So let's just quickly recap the difference to make it super clear. The General Assembly is where the world talks. It's the big forum for global discussion. The Security Council, on the other hand, is where the world is supposed to act, and its power is super concentrated, all defined by that unique veto power that only the P5 have. And that brings us right to the veto. It is, without a doubt, the most powerful tool in the UN's entire arsenal. But it is also arguably its single biggest flaw. It's a true double-edged sword, and it has shaped pretty much all of global politics for over 75 years. So what is it exactly? Well, it's pretty simple. The veto gives any one of those 5 permanent members the power to single-handedly kill any major resolution. It doesn't matter if the other 14 members all vote yes. If just one P5 member says no, the resolution is dead, gone. And you can probably see the huge built-in problem here, right? The whole idea of the UN is based on this ideal of collective action, of everyone working together for the greater good. But the veto basically ensures that when push comes to shove, the national interests of just one of the world's most powerful countries can bring everything to a grinding halt. And look, this is not just some theory. It happens all the time. Throughout the Cold War, the Security Council was frequently just paralyzed because the US and the Soviet Union were constantly vetoing each other's resolutions. And more recently, in 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine, a resolution to condemn the act was stopped dead in the Security Council because Russia, a permanent member, simply vetoed it. Hey, remember how we talked about Palestine only being an observer? Well, this is why. To become a full member, you have to get approval from the Security Council. And those applications have been blocked time and time again by vetoes from the United States and sometimes the UK because of the incredible complexities of that region. That is the veto directly shaping the world map. Now, this doesn't mean the Council never gets anything done. Not at all. There have been some amazing successes, like in Liberia in 2003, where UN peacekeepers were absolutely crucial in stabilizing the country after a horrific civil war. But then you have the tragic failures. The 1994 genocide in Rwanda, where a lack of political will from the big powers meant the UN couldn't effectively intervene, is just a horrifying reminder of the system's limits. Nearly 1 million people died. So all of this brings us back to our big question. In our deeply interconnected, globalized world, where does this incredibly powerful and yet often very flawed organization actually fit in? It's really a fascinating two-way street. On one hand, the UN exists because of globalization. I mean, a world this connected just needs a place to manage itself. But at the same time, the UN is a driver of globalization. By creating international rules and norms for everything from trade to human rights, it's actively weaving our world even tighter together. All right, so let's boil it all down. What are the key things to remember? 1, the UN was born from the failure of its predecessor and was designed to have more power. 2, it balances this idea of global representation in the General Assembly with the hard reality of concentrated power in the Security Council. And 3, at the very heart of that power is the veto, the tool that both enables the UN and, at times, completely cripples it. And that leaves us with one final massive question to think about. We live in a world that's facing challenges no single country can solve. We're talking climate change, pandemics, you name it. So as our world keeps getting more and more complex, how does an organization that was designed back in 1945 evolve to meet the challenges not just of today, but of tomorrow?